On February the 1st, 1887, the Lady Vane was lost by collision with a derelict about the latitude 1 degree south and longitude 107 degrees west. On January the 5th, 1888, 11 months and 4 days after, Edward Prendick, a private gentleman who went aboard the Lady Vane at Callao, was picked up around 5 degrees south and 101 degrees west in a small open boat. He gave such a strange account of himself that he was supposed demented. Subsequently, he alleged that his mind was a blank from the moment of his escape. The following narrative was found among his papers, unaccompanied by any request for publication.
I drifted, famishing and tormented by an intolerable thirst. For 8 days I lay thinking that if I had the strength, I would drink seawater and madden myself to die quickly. And even as I lay there, I saw, with no more interest than if it had been a picture, a sail come up towards me over the skyline. I do not remember anything distinctly after the sight of her. I had a disconnected impression of a dark face with extraordinary eyes close to mine, but that I thought was a nightmare, until I met it again. The cabin in which I found myself was small and rather untidy. A youngish man with flaxen hair and a bristly straw-coloured moustache was holding my wrist. "You were in luck," said he, "to get picked up by a ship with a medical man aboard." After a day of alternate sleep and feeding, I was so far recovered as to be able to get from my bunk to the scuttle and see the green seas trying to keep pace with us. Montgomery, that was the name of the young man, came in again as I stood there, and I asked him some questions about the destination of the ship. He said it was bound to Hawaii, but that it had to land him first. "Where?" said I. "It's an island where I live. So far as I know, it hasn't got a name." He looked so willfully stupid of a sudden that it came into my head that he desired to avoid my questions. I had the discretion to ask no more. We left the cabin and found a man at the companion, obstructing our way. He was a misshapen type, short, broad and clumsy, with a crooked back and a head sunk between his shoulders. I heard unseen dogs growl furiously, and forthwith the man ducked back. The face thus flashed upon me shocked me profoundly. The facial part projected, forming something dimly suggestive of a muzzle, and the huge half-open mouth showed as big white teeth as I had ever seen in a human mouth. His eyes were bloodshot at the edges, with scarcely a rim of white round the hazel pupils. "Confound you, Maling," said Montgomery. "Why the devil don't you get out of my way?" The black-faced man cowered. "They won't have me forward." He spoke slowly, with a queer, hoarse quality in his voice. "Won't have you forward," said Montgomery in a menacing tone. "But I tell you to go." He was on the brink of saying something further, then looked up at me suddenly, and followed me up the ladder. I turned and looked about me at the flush deck of the little schooner. Certainly I never beheld a deck so dirty. Fastened by chains to the mainmast were a number of grisly staghounds, who now began leaping and barking at me, and by the mizzen a huge puma was cramped in a little iron cage, far too small even to give it turning room. Farther under the starboard bulwark were hutches containing a number of rabbits, and a solitary llama was squeezed in a mere box of a cage forward. We heard a yelp and a volley of furious blasphemy from the companion hatchway, and the deformed man came up hurriedly. He was immediately followed by a heavy, red-haired man in a white cap. The staghounds became furiously excited. The black hesitated before them, and this gave the red-haired man time to come up with him and deliver a tremendous blow between the shoulder blades. The poor devil went down like a felled ox. Montgomery gave an angry exclamation and went striding down the deck. "Look you here, Captain. That man of mine is not to be ill-treated. Your sailors began to haze the poor devil as soon as he came aboard." "That's just what he is," snarled the captain. An ugly devil. My men can't stand him. I can't stand him. None of us can't stand him. If he comes this end of the ship again, I'll cut his insides out, I tell you." I saw Montgomery take a step forward and interposed. "He's drunk," said I. The captain began some abuse, even fouler than the last. "Shut up," I said, turning on him sharply, for I'd seen the danger in Montgomery's white face. With that, I brought the downpour on myself. However, I was glad to avert what was uncommonly near a scuffle, even at the price of the captain's drunken ill will. He reminded me of it with considerable vigour, but at any rate I prevented a fight. That night land was sighted after sundown, and the schooner hove to. I found Montgomery very reticent about his purpose with these creatures, and about his destination, and though I was curious as to both, I did not press him. In the early morning I became sensible of a coarse shouting above me. Then came the sound of heavy objects being thrown about, a violent creaking and the rattling of chains. I jumped into my clothes and went on deck. As I came up the ladder, I saw against the flushed sky the broad back and red hair of the captain, and over his shoulder the puma spinning from a tackle rigged onto the mizzen spanker boom. "Overboard with 'em!" bawled the captain. "We'll have a clean ship soon, or the whole bilin' of 'em." He stood in my way, so that I had to tap his shoulder to come on deck. He came round with a start, and staggered back a few paces to stare at me. It needed no expert eye to tell that the man was drunk. He held out his hand to the gangway, by which Montgomery stood talking to a massive grey-haired man in dirty blue flannels, who had apparently just come aboard. "That way, Mr. Blasted Shut-Up! That way!" roared the captain. "We're cleaning the whole blessed ship out, and overboard you go!" Montgomery and his companion turned as he spoke. "Can't have you," said the other man concisely. "You can't have me," said I, aghast. He had the squarest and most resolute face I'd ever set eyes upon. "But Montgomery," I appealed. He distorted his lower lip, and nodded his head hopelessly at the grey-haired man beside him, to indicate his powerlessness to help me. The dinghy of the Lady Vane had been towing behind. It was half full of water, had no oars, and was quite unvictualled. I refused to go aboard her, and flung myself full length on the deck. In the end, they swung me into her by a rope, for they had no stern ladder, and then they cut me loose. I drifted very slowly to the eastward, approaching the island slantingly, and presently I saw with hysterical relief the launch come round and return towards me. Montgomery, who was steering, brought the boat by me, and rising, caught and fastened my painter to the tiller to tow me, for there was no room aboard. The white-haired man I found was still regarding me steadfastly, but with an expression, as I now fancied, of some perplexity. From him my eyes travelled to his 3 men, and a strange crew they were. Their limbs were oddly swathed in some thin, dirty white stuff, down even to the fingers and feet. They wore turbans, too, and thereunder peered out their elfin faces at me, faces with protruding lower jaws and bright eyes. Montgomery steered us round and into a narrow little dock excavated in the beach. The 3 muffled men scrambled out upon the sand, and forthwith set to landing the cargo. I was struck especially by the curious movements of their legs. Not stiff they were, but distorted in some odd way, almost as if they were jointed in the wrong place. The white-haired man came up to me. "You look," said he, "as though you had scarcely breakfasted." His little eyes were a brilliant black under his heavy brows. "I must apologize for that. Now you are our guest, we must make you comfortable, though you are uninvited, you know. Our little establishment here contains a secret or so. Nothing very dreadful, really, to a sane man. But just now, as we don't know you—" He twisted his heavy mouth into a faint smile.